What if the miracle is already happening? What if one of the greatest miracles you have been waiting for is not something descending from the sky, but something already happening inside you? Right now, without asking your permission, your heart is beating, your lungs are exchanging breath, and trillions of cells are carrying out an astonishing work of life. Modern biology gives these processes scientific names. But in the Aramaic linguistic world surrounding Jesus, there were words for encountering something extraordinary, something that awakened wonder. One of them, preserved in the Syriac Aramaic tradition, is te, de, mo, erete, a word associated with wonder, marvel, extraordinary sign, and miracle. And tonight, we are going to explore a provocative question. What happens when we stop thinking of a miracle only as something that interrupts nature and begin recognizing the extraordinary mystery already operating within the human body? This is not a claim that an Aramaic word is literally written into your DNA, nor that repeating a word can medically cure your cells. Mystery is deeper than that. The ancient language can become a lens through which we rediscover something we have stopped noticing. Life itself is astonishing, and when Jesus restored people, he repeatedly directed attention not merely toward spectacle, but toward wholeness, faith, restoration, and life. So, stay until the end, because after uncovering the meaning of we will connect this ancient idea with breath, the body, and a simple nighttime practice of prayer and awareness that can change the way you inhabit the physical temple you have been given. Tedmurta, the forgotten Aramaic word to understand we must first return to the linguistic world surrounding Jesus. Aramaic was not merely a collection of sounds used to exchange information. It belonged to the everyday world of families, villages, marketplaces, prayer, suffering, celebration, and hope. Jesus lived within this Aramaic-speaking environment. Even though the region was multilingual and Hebrew and Greek also had important roles. That matters because ancient words often carried ranges of meaning that become narrower when translated into a single English equivalent. Tedmurta, written in Syriac script and pronounced approximately Ted, belongs to the Syriac Aramaic tradition and can convey the idea of a wonder, marvel, extraordinary deed, sin, or miracle. We should be careful here. We cannot prove that this was the exact form personally spoken by Jesus on a particular occasion. Syriac preserves an important Aramaic tradition, but responsible exploration requires us to distinguish linguistic tradition from an exact historical quotation. And strangely, that distinction makes the mystery more interesting, not less. Because what does miracle mean to you? For many people, it means that the normal laws of existence suddenly stop and something impossible occurs. But ancient religious language could invite a broader experience of wonder. Something extraordinary did not necessarily become meaningful simply because it violated nature. It became meaningful because it revealed something that ordinary perception had failed to see. Think about your body for a moment. You consciously decide to move your hand, but you do not consciously instruct every muscle fiber involved. You fall asleep, yet your heart does not wait for you to remember to beat. Cells maintain complex processes while your conscious attention is somewhere else entirely. None of this proves a supernatural mechanism. Biology explains biological mechanisms, but explanation does not have to eliminate wonder. This is where Tedmurta becomes powerful for our journey. It gives us a different question. Instead of asking only, when will something miraculous happen to me? We can ask, what extraordinary reality have I become too accustomed to notice? And that question will take us directly into the healing stories of Jesus. What Jesus revealed through the body. When we read the healing accounts surrounding Jesus, something remarkable appears. The human body is never treated as meaningless. Eyes see again. Hands are restored. People stand, walk, touch, eat, return to their families, and re-enter their communities. The Gospel stories present restoration through intensely physical images. In Mark chapter 5, for example, the story of the woman who had suffered for years reaches its turning point through an encounter involving faith, touch, healing, and restoration. The body becomes part of the story through which a deeper transformation is revealed. But there is an important difference between those Gospel accounts and some modern claims about cellular activation. Scripture does not teach that. Jesus explained DNA, mitochondria, or cellular frequencies. Those concepts belong to modern biology. We do not need to place 21st century science into the mouth of Jesus to make his teachings profound. What we can observe is something more grounded. His ministry repeatedly refuses to separate human suffering from human dignity. Consider what happens after healing in many gospel narratives. The person does not merely receive a spectacular event. Something is restored. Isolation gives way to relationship. Fear gives way to movement. Exclusion gives way to belonging. The miracle points beyond itself. This gives us another way to contemplate Tedmurta. A wonder is not valuable merely because people can stare at it. Its meaning lies in what it reveals. And now modern biology gives us an extraordinary perspective the ancient world did not possess. We can look deeply into tissues and cells. We know that cells require energy to maintain life, and that mitochondria play a central role in converting energy from nutrients into forms cells can use. Every breath participates indirectly in the enormous network of processes sustaining the body. This does not mean your mitochondria are speaking Aramaic or vibrating with Tedmurta. It means science has allowed us to observe, with extraordinary detail, processes that can inspire genuine wonder. Perhaps this is where the spiritual practice begins, not by pretending biology is magic, but by refusing to let familiarity make life invisible. Before we continue, if these ancient Aramaic words are helping you see the teachings of Jesus with new eyes, continue your journey with our Aramaic Wisdom Guide. You will find it in the pinned comment, because in the next chapter, we enter an even deeper mystery. The relationship between breath, life, and the ancient Aramaic understanding of spirit, and why one ordinary breath can become a powerful reminder that the miracle of being alive is happening now. The miracle happening inside you. Take one slow breath and notice what is happening without any conscious command. Air enters your lungs, oxygen reaches the bloodstream, and your circulation carries it throughout the body. Inside your cells, oxygen participates in processes that help transform nutrients into usable energy. Much of this activity depends upon the mitochondria. You do not consciously instruct these processes, and while you sleep, the extraordinary machinery of life continues working silently. Modern science calls this biology, and that is exactly what it is. Yet understanding a mechanism does not have to remove our sense of wonder. Imagine explaining cellular respiration to someone living 2,000 years ago. What appeared to be one simple breath would suddenly reveal an invisible world of astonishing complexity. Science has allowed us to observe that world, but perhaps familiarity has caused us to stop being amazed by it. This is where Tedmurta becomes important. Remember its range of meaning in the Syriac-Aramaic tradition: wonder, marvel, extraordinary deed, miracle. We are not claiming that cellular respiration was what ancient Aramaic speakers meant by or that the word is literally encoded into human DNA. Instead, we are using this ancient idea as a lens through which to recognize something extraordinary that has become ordinary to us. Your DNA carries biological instructions that cells use in maintaining and developing the body. It is not an Aramaic spiritual code, and there is no evidence that Jesus taught about DNA or mitochondria. We do not need to invent that connection. The reality is already remarkable enough. Countless biological processes continue every second, mostly beyond your conscious awareness, and perhaps this changes how we look at the body. Most people notice their bodies most intensely when something hurts, weakens, ages, or fails. Tedmurta invites us to notice something else. Everything the body is still doing. This does not mean illness results from insufficient faith, prayer, or spiritual frequency. Jesus repeatedly approached suffering with compassion, not condemnation. Spiritual reflection should never replace appropriate medical care or turn sickness into personal failure. So tonight, instead of asking only, "Where is my miracle?" ask another question: "What extraordinary gift have I stopped noticing?" Because when we turn our attention toward something as simple as breathing, another ancient Aramaic word appears, ruka, and its connection with breath, wind, and spirit takes this mystery even deeper. Ruka, breath, wind, and spirit. Breath occupies a remarkable boundary within human experience. You can consciously slow it for a moment, deepen it, or briefly hold it. But eventually, the body continues the process without requiring your attention. Breathing is ordinary enough to be ignored, and essential enough that life depends upon it. And within the Semitic linguistic world surrounding Jesus, this simple act opens the door to another powerful idea. The Aramaic ruka carries meanings associated with spirit, wind, and breath. Similar connections appear across ancient Semitic languages. This does not mean oxygen is literally spirit, nor that changing your breathing activates supernatural cellular healing. The relationship is linguistic and spiritual. Yet consider how powerful these overlapping meanings would have been in an ancient world. Wind cannot be held, but its movement can be seen. Breath is invisible, yet its presence reveals life. Now, plays ruka. Beside Tedmurta, one leads us toward breath, wind, and spirit. The other toward wonder, marvel, and miracle. Together they offer a contemplative idea. An ordinary breath can become a reminder of something extraordinary. This imagery also appears around the teachings of Jesus. In John chapter 3, the conversation about spirit uses the image of wind, something invisible, recognized through its effects. The surviving gospel text is Greek, where pneuma itself can carry associations with wind, breath, and spirit. The image therefore belongs deeply to the ancient religious world. Perhaps our problem is not simply that we need more extraordinary signs. Perhaps we have forgotten how to recognize wonder in what happens every day. We search for thunder while overlooking breath. We ask when God will give us another sign while rushing past another sunrise, another heartbeat, another moment of consciousness. This is why Tedmurta should never become a magical formula. Saying Tedmurta does not command your cells to heal. Instead, the word can become a reminder, I am alive. I am breathing. I have received another moment. Tonight, allow one gentle breath to become a prayer. Ajuinale. Remember, Ruka. Breath, wind, spirit. As you exhale, remember, tiede miu ere te, wonder, marvel, miracle. Right now, you might be asking yourself, why am I only discovering this truth now? Don't worry. We thought about that. We're here to help you go deeper with a guide made for this journey. The link is in the comments. If this message is speaking to you, share it with someone who needs to rediscover the wonder of life. Because next we must ask a deeper question. How did Jesus understand restoration of the whole person, body, dignity, faith, and life? When Jesus restored more than the body, when we look carefully at the healing stories of Jesus, a pattern begins to emerge. The person standing before him is never merely a collection of symptoms. Again and again, restoration reaches beyond the physical condition. People who had been isolated return to community. Those who had lived under shame are seen again. Those who had lost movement rise and walk. The gospel narratives therefore invite us to see healing not simply as a biological event, but as restoration of the whole person. This is important for understanding Tedmurta. If miracle means wonder, marvel, or extraordinary deed, then the deepest wonder in these stories may not be limited to what happened physically. Something broken was being restored. A person who had been reduced to suffering was once again treated as someone possessing dignity, purpose, and belonging. Consider the paralytic in Mark chapter 2. Before the man rises, Jesus addresses something deeper than his inability to walk. The story brings together faith, forgiveness, physical restoration, and relationship. Whatever theological interpretation we bring to the passage, one detail remains striking. Jesus sees the person before he sees merely the condition. That changes the way we approach our own bodies. The body is not a machine we should despise whenever it becomes weak. Aging does not erase dignity. Illness does not make someone spiritually inferior. Physical limitation does not mean God has abandoned a person. Perhaps Tedmurta begins here, learning to look at ourselves again with reverence, rather than constant judgment. Your body has carried your history. It has carried laughter, grief, work, embraces, exhaustion, prayer, and countless ordinary mornings. It deserves care rather than hostility. And this prepares us for another ancient biblical image. The body as something entrusted to us, a physical temple through which life itself is experienced, the temple you carry with you. For centuries, sacred spaces were places people traveled toward. Temples, mountains, sanctuaries, and places of prayer represented encounters between the visible and the invisible. Yet the biblical tradition eventually develops an extraordinary image. The human person can also be described through the language of a temple. The sacred is no longer imagined only as something encountered somewhere outside ourselves. The well-known expression, "Your body is a temple," comes explicitly from Paul in 1 Corinthians 6, rather than from a recorded saying of Jesus. But it resonates with something we repeatedly see in his ministry. Bodies matter, hunger matters, touch matters, rest matters, suffering matters, restoration matters. Spiritual life is not presented simply as hatred or abandonment of physical existence. Now return to Tedmurta. Perhaps one reason we fail to recognize wonder is that we treat the body only as an object to correct. We look into the mirror, searching for what has changed. We compare strength, appearance, youth, and energy. Eventually, gratitude can disappear beneath constant evaluation. But what happens when the body becomes something entrusted to us, rather than something we are constantly fighting? Then ordinary choices acquire spiritual meaning. Rest becomes stewardship. Nourishment becomes care. Movement, appropriate to our abilities, becomes gratitude. Seeking medical help when necessary becomes responsibility rather than weakness. And a quiet moment of prayer becomes an opportunity to inhabit the body instead of continually escaping from it. This is not a formula guaranteeing health. Bodies remain vulnerable, and every human life eventually encounters limitation. Tedmurta B does not promise immunity from that reality. It offers another possibility. Wonder within reality. Tonight, before asking your body to become different, thank it for something it has already carried you through. Perhaps your hands, your eyes, your breath, your heartbeat, even one small function you usually overlook. Because the final secret of Tedmurta may not be learning how to command a miracle, it may be learning how to recognize one. The Tedmurta night practice. Tonight, when the noise of the day has ended, try something simple. You do not need special music, complicated rituals, or promises of instant transformation. Sit or lie comfortably and allow your breathing to remain natural. Place one hand gently over your chest and notice the unmistakable evidence that life is still moving through you. As you inhale, remember, Rocco, breath, wind, spirit. As you exhale, remember, Tedmurta, wonder, marvel, miracle. Do not use these words as magical commands. Let them become reminders. With every breath, recognize something you normally overlook. Your heart continues its rhythm. Your body continues its work. Another moment has been given to you. Then, quietly, pray. Father, thank you for the life you have given me. Teach me to see with gratitude what I have learned to overlook. Give me wisdom to care for this body, peace to accept what I cannot control, and courage to seek help when I need it. Let every breath remind me that life is a gift. Restore my hope, strengthen my spirit, and lead me into your peace. Amen. Perhaps this is the final mystery hidden behind Tedmurta B. We began by asking whether the miracle might be hidden within your body. The answer is not a secret Aramaic sequence buried inside DNA. It is something both simpler and deeper. Your body contains an astonishing living complexity that deserves attention, gratitude, and care. And perhaps Jesus continually redirected people toward precisely this deeper kind of seeing eyes that recognize what others overlook. Compassion where others see weakness, and hope where suffering has become the entire story. If you want to continue discovering the forgotten Aramaic words connected to the world of Jesus, subscribe and join us for the next journey. Just a quick reminder, the transformation guides for a fuller life are waiting for you, right there in the comments. Tonight, do not demand a sign. Take one breath. Remember Tedmurta and recognize the wonder already before you.